Of course, speed control is always an important part of the game. Looking at it, Mana Buzz will be able to set up tailwinds, kind of similar to that Drift Limb Tapu Lele core that we talk about a lot coming into these tournaments. Setting up tailwinds, nice. Being able to boost the speed of your Pokemon for 4 turns, that's going to be huge. A lot of players do also use Trick Room, but it looks like right now, Kaede is going to have complete speed control.
He really is, and that could work in his favor, or James could have just decided, I'm sure this is a situation he considered when he was building his team for the World Championships. It's possible that he decided that he doesn't really want or need the speed control on his team, that he's happy to sort of work around the parameters that his opponent gives him in terms of maybe the Trick Room, maybe the Tailwind, maybe something else, and react and be okay with that. I know some trainers, they much rather maybe counter the Tailwind with a Trick Room or have some sort of set game plan for this, but when you're running so many Pokemon that are known to deal a lot of damage, such as that Tapu Koko, that Garchomp, the Arcanine, the Metagross, the Bulu, speed control might not even be necessary.
Yep, of course, Bulldoze, that Bulldoze combination with that Metagross, that is a form of speed control as well. It's going to take 2 Bulldozes, however, to be able to slow down Kaede's Pokemon under a Tailwind, and of course, if it's floating, it's not going to be hit by that anyway, so that Mana Buzz is going to continue to benefit from that Tailwind unless it somehow gets grounded by Smackdown Gravity, but that's not really that common.
That's not really that common, but you never know what surprises these trainers decide to bring into the Pokemon World Championships.
And here we are, the players are ready to get underway now. Here, Game 1, Swiss Round 4 between James Baek and Kaede Waga. Tapu Fini and Tapu Bulu are the Pokemon that James decides to lead with. It's going to go ahead and reveal what Tapu is going to be faster because of how the trains come out. Tapu Lele and Kartana are the leads that Kaede decides to go with. And here we go, we're going to be determining a lot of speed orders here. It looks like Tapu Lele's Psychic Surge is going to go ahead and activate first before everything making the battlefield weird. And Tapu Fini's Misty Surge is going to go ahead and activate. And after that will be the Tapu Bulu. So Tapu Lele is the fastest Tapu on the field, Tapu Fini, and then Tapu Bulu in that order.
Great job for Kaede there, sending out that Kartana to possibly take advantage of the grassy terrain if James decided to lead with that Tapu Bulu. Really an interesting lead from James. You don't normally see trainers bring both of their Alolan Guardian Pokemon out on the field, nevertheless turn 1 of a battle, so this must be something that he's prepared for. He might have some sort of combination move between that Tapu Fini and that Tapu Bulu. What it is, we'll just have to see, but overall, I think Kaede is probably in the better position right now, but James certainly able to work around that.
Tapu Fini now going to switch out, going to switch in Arcanine here, which is going to be able to deal with that Kartana a little bit better, even better because of that Intimidate ability here. Going to lower Kartana's attack stat by 1 stage. Tapu Bulu not going to want to take a powerful Psychic from that Tapu Lele or even a Smart Strike from that Kartana, as the Smart Strike does connect into that Protect right there, as Tapu Lele now going for Moonblast into that Tapu Lele slot as well. So James, a very good switch right there.
A very good switch and a very great adjustment, using the Intimidate to weaken that Kartana's attack power and also threaten it with any fire-type moves that Arcanine is known to have. Sometimes they're a special Arcanine with a move like Flamethrower. More often they'll run Flare Blitz, which is a physical attacking move. Either way, Kartana has, ironically, paper-thin defenses, so probably will not want to stay out on the field while staring down that Arcanine. Tapu Lele, I think, is probably the more interesting Pokemon moving forwards in this turn. We saw it go for a Moonblast into the Tapu Bulu. Not going to deal a lot of damage. It's not boosted by any terrain. Whether or not it sticks around, we'll have to see.
And here comes an all-out pummeling coming from this Kartana, going ahead and activating its Fightinium Z. Going to be doing a good amount of damage to that Arcanine here. If it does target down that Arcanine, it should be, because, well, Tapu Bulu resistant and also has a sky-high physical defense. That Arcanine now is going to be taking this all-out pummeling, not doing that much damage because of that Intimidate from earlier, doing about 50% right there, as Tapu Lele hitting that Arcanine also with a Psychic, doing a lot of damage. Arcanine gets KO'd. Can't hang on just enough, but, well, that's the first KO on Kaede's side. Tapu Bulu now using Wood Hammer here, boosted by that grassy terrain, hitting that Tapu Lele for the KO as well. So a trade for that Tapu Lele for that Arcanine.
I think that was the trade that Kaede had to make there. The Arcanine was a huge threat to his team. The Kartana can't really stop it. Whereas with the Tapu Bulu, yes, even though it's able to deal a ton of damage with those grassy terrain boosted wood hammers, we saw it just flat out knock out that Tapu Lele in one hit. It's not as threatened. It does have that grass typing. It will resist all of Tapu Bulu's moves. Really, Kaede wants to continue to threaten with that fastest Pokemon on the field, and he doesn't want to worry about taking any attacks. Sending in his own Arcanine here is also a great adjustment, using that Intimidate to weaken the Tapu Bulu and the Garchomp's attacking power as well.
Yeah, so that's a big Intimidate right there from Kaede's side. Arcanine is one of the more popular Pokemon in this format because of its access to Intimidate. Also because, you see a lot of Kartana, you see a lot of Tapu Bulu, and of course Celesteela running around, so Fire type is a very good offensive type.
Fire type is an amazing offensive type in the metagame right now, and Arcanine is probably one of the best Pokemon to utilize it, as we shall see moving forward.
Tapu Fini now switching out, gonna switch in... Oh, sorry, Tapu Bulu switching out, gonna switch into Tapu Fini. Preserving that Tapu Bulu for a little bit later on. Arcanine revealing that it does have Helping Hand here. Arcanine's one of those Pokemon that has a lot of different possible sets. Kartana now going for a Leaf Blade, boosted by that Helping Hand, but no longer boosted by that Terrain. Gonna hit into that Garchomp, doing a little over 50% as Garchomp's Rough Skin gonna do some damage back to Kartana, as Garchomp now using this turn to set up, gonna go for a Swords Dance here and boost its attack stat by 2 stages, but of course now we know that Garchomp is threatened to be KO'd by another Helping Hand Leaf Blade.
An interesting turn here from James. Swords Dance, I think, did a great job of capitalizing on the fact that it's possible that, Kartana can deal some damage to the Garchomp, but it has been intimidated. That Arcanine, the most I think it could do here is maybe attempt to go for a Will-O-Wisp to try and burn that Garchomp. So if you use Swords Dance, then you can boost your attack and negate the attack drop. Not fully from the Will-O-Wisp, but, somewhat. Tapu Fini, it is threatened by that Kartana, but on the other hand, Tapu Bulu is in the back. I think it would be happy to just come out on the field now that the Arcanine is a little bit more threatened, or it could just stick around for another turn.
Arcanine using Helping Hand here, gonna boost that Leaf Blade again. Kartana now going into that Tapu Fini slot and picks up the KO. That was a lot of damage. Helping Hand, of course, just helping out its partner, increasing the damage output by 1.5. As the Kartana now getting an attack boost from that Beast Boost ability, and now the Tectonic Rage comes out from the Garchomp here, gonna go ahead and target down either the Kartana or that Garchomp, gonna do massive amounts of damage to either one because of its Swords Dance from before, even though it is currently at 1 stage of increased attack after that Intimidate. Now gonna hit that Kartana, gonna try to remove that threat because, well, Garchomp actually has a decent matchup in terms of going up against that Arcanine, because Arcanine doesn't really have much that can hit it. So now that Kartana does get KO'd, so now down to the last 2 Pokemon on each side.
Yes, and it will be that Tapu Bulu making an appearance for James. Kaede sending out that Mandibuzz. Really interesting option. Not going to be able to benefit from that Psychic Seed if that's what it's holding. A Tailwind might be able to help it here, but I think what Kaede is going to be looking to use, rather than any of those moves, is going to be the Foul Play attack. Foul Play is really interesting because it actually uses your opponent's attacking power as the basis for how much damage it's going to use. So it can certainly take advantage of the fact that that Garchomp is currently at 1 stage of boosted attack. It can threaten down that Tapu Bulu alongside its buddy Arcanine. So a great Pokemon to keep in the back, even though it is more of a defensive play.
Arcanine protecting itself here as Garchomp going for one of the best moves in the game, using Rock Slide here, gonna connect on that Mandibuzz. Is Mandibuzz gonna flinch? No! It gets to go for a Tailwind here, gonna double the speed on Kaede's side here, allowing Arcanine to possibly outspeed that Garchomp and go for an attack. But here's the Wood Hammer boosted by that Grassy Terrain, doing a lot of damage to that Mandibuzz, but Mandibuzz hangs on with just a sliver of hit points. One of the issues about Mandibuzz in this Grassy Terrain is that it doesn't get recovery because it's actually flying.
It is actually flying, but a lot of Mandibuzz carry moves like Roost, and that's certainly something that Kaede can use this turn. I don't think recovering health on Mandibuzz is his #1 priority. Instead, I think he needs to look to knock out that Garchomp as quickly as possible. The Arcanine is more than happy to use some sort of Fire-type move, I think, to attack that Tapu Bulu. We still don't know what that is quite yet, because we've only seen that Helping Hand. But the Garchomp, if that Tapu Bulu were to protect, can use Earthquake to try and knock out the Arcanine, or maybe some other move, such as that Rock Slide.
Tapu Bulu protecting itself, not wanting to get KO'd just yet. Mandibuzz using that foul play, hitting that Garchomp with an attack boost. Does enough to pick up the KO. Mandibuzz gets KO'd because of the rough skin, so it's going to come down to the Arcanine and the Tapu Bulu. What an exciting game one we already have down to the wire. Is Arcanine going to be able to connect onto the, well, it is going to be able to connect, but is it going to be enough? Because Tapu Bulu does have a high physical defense stat.
It does have a high physical defense stat, but we know that the Arcanine will be moving first thanks to that Tailwind. Arcanine is at full health. I would imagine that this kind of Arcanine might be holding one of those pinch berries, which would mean that Tapu Bulu, if that Wood Hammer isn't able to knock it out in one hit, or if it's not holding something to help it with this Arcanine matchup, it will probably do enough damage just to immediately activate that Pinch Berry if this move does not knock it out.
Arcanine now going for the Flare Blitz, connected on Tapu Bulu. It is enough to pick up the KO. And Kaede Waga with a clutch Tailwind from that Mandibuzz picks up game one. You know, one of the issues with Tapu Bulu, of course, is the fact that it really likes Grass-type attacks.
Yeah, Tapu Bulu, I mean, it does get some other interesting moves that you can run, such as like a Superpower, for example. But most of the time, people will run it with that Wood Hammer or maybe a Horn Leech, which helps you restore a little bit of your health as well. But those moves don't really help you with Arcanine, especially if that Arcanine is already faster. I think the key to Kaede's success there was the fact that he kept that Mandibuzz in the back. You know, I think a lot of American players, when they use Mandibuzz along with one of the terrain seeds, if you will, they'll tend to lead it out immediately alongside whatever Pokemon can bring that terrain, get that defense boost, and then, you know, set up the Tailwind immediately and play it that way. Whereas Kaede, he sort of flipped that around and said, well, I know that the Pokemon I have in the front of my party can help with, you know, maybe the things that Mandibuzz doesn't want to see as much, so that by the time I do send out my Mandibuzz onto the field, it's free to use those foul plays and threaten the remaining physical attackers on James's side of the field. So really a very well-managed game one from Kaede. Moving forwards, I don't think that James is going to rely or count on that Mandibuzz, leave all of his Mandibuzz counters out on the field at first. I think he's going to play it a little bit more conservatively. I don't think we'll see much of a Pokemon adjustment, though, from either of these trainers, because whatever they had clearly worked, and I don't think they need to change up their strategy that much. Just if you're Kaede, you know, keep doing what you're doing, maybe try and play the Mandibuzz a little bit differently to catch James off guard once again. But otherwise, just, you know, go with it. Go with the flow, make your moves, and hope for the best.
Yeah, and, you know, it's one thing we always mention all the time, you know, you got to shake off the last one. Of course, take the information that you learned from game one, but you got to be able to shake off anything that happened in game one and, you know, just look forward towards the next game. So anyways, again, you know, Mandibuzz with the Tapu Lele not activating a seed when it came into either the Misty Terrain or the Grassy Terrain. So you want to say that it does have the Psychic seed, and it's looking to get boosted with the Special Defense, and you're right. A lot of players, they do opt for, you know, just leading with the terrain setter and the seed user off the bat to just get as much momentum going in as possible. Kaede was able to operate that Mandibuzz without activating any seed at all. So, you know, Kaede staying calm and collected as we get ready to jump here into game two between Kaede Waga and James Baek of, well, here in round 4. So Arcanine comes out for Kaede, as Tapu Lele also comes out for Kaede. Tapu Koko and Metagross are Pokemon that James decides to opt for. And of course, this is a big adjustment from James coming in here, as Arcanine will not even be able to lower Metagross's stats because of the Clear Body ability. You know, Tapu Lele is going to be the slower Pokemon since it does also set its terrain.
That terrain will benefit James's Metagross. It will boost. We haven't seen any of the Metagross yet in Game 1, so we can only assume that it might have Zen Headbutt. But given the fact that most Metagross do, I think that's a safe assumption to make. Really, Kaede, it's an interesting adjustment from James. Kaede relied so much on that Arcanine in Game 1 to threaten the Tapu Bulu, to slowly threaten the other members of James's team using Helping Hand to boost the attacks of, you know, that Arcanine's partners. Metagross as an adjustment was not what I was expecting.
Metagross now protecting itself as Tapu Koko using Nature's Madness, but Arcanine dodges the attack as it looks like, well, Tapu Lele goes for an attack into that Metagross Protect, as does that Arcanine. So essentially Metagross protected, and that's it. It just might fail to protect next turn.
Yeah, I don't think James is going to risk that. I think Metagross is probably too key of a Pokemon just in whatever he has in the back to just allow it to get knocked out so easily by the Arcanine and the Tapu Lele combo. It's unfortunate that Nature's Madness missed. It's possible that bringing Arcanine down to half its health would have allowed Tapu Koko to knock it out before it could threaten that Metagross this turn. Most likely we'll see him adjust, bringing that Metagross back into the safety of his party and sending out something that might not mind taking those attacks. Tapu Fini is one Pokemon we saw him bring in Game 1. That would be a pretty decent switch here, but instead, James making a very risky play and leaving that Metagross out on the field.
As Tapu Koko using Skydrop here, going to bring Arcanine all the way up into the sky and make it not be able to move at all this turn. Kaede playing a bit safe here, protecting that Tapu Lele, not doing the exact same thing, which could have led to a possible KO on that Tapu Lele. So good play right there from James, taking that Arcanine into the sky. Metagross now was safe for another turn.
It's safe for another turn, but I think Kaede just learned something very important about this Tapu Koko. We've seen the Nature's Madness, we've seen Volt Switch and the Skydrop just from that last turn. Usually the Tapu Koko that have all three of those moves are some of the Assault Vest variety. This means that Tapu Koko cannot protect, it cannot use supporting moves to help its partner, which may change how Kaede approaches this upcoming turn.
All right, Metagross switches out here as Tapu Koko releases the Arcanine from that Skydrop. Garchomp is a much better switch in, will be able to take a possible Flare Blitz and a Thunderbolt, but instead Tapu Lele using Psychic, boosted by that Psychic Terrain, doing a massive amount of damage to that Tapu Koko. It is boosted by a Life Orb as Arcanine now using Flare Blitz, going to connect onto that Garchomp slot. Not going to do that much damage at all because of that switch, but does get a burn! Huge burn right there as Garchomp's Rough Skin activates. That burn is going to reduce the amount of physical damage that Garchomp does by half.
And we know that Garchomp has the Swords Dance move to try and mitigate some of that attack drop, but that takes time. And sometimes you cannot afford to sort of spend those, I think it's 2 turns to sort of offset the amount of attack you've lost thanks to the burn. That Garchomp might have a move like Rock Slide. I think now would be a great time to use it. I believe we did see it in Game 1. So rather than use Garchomp as an offensive threat, use it for the Rock Slide, try and get those flinches, try and stall out time for Tapu Koko or whoever Garchomp's partner is to attack.
Garchomp now forced to switch out. Metagross is going to come right back in, trying to take a Moonblast or a Psychic a lot better. Arcanine going to follow suit, going to switch back into Kaide's bench here as Garchomp comes in, going to be able to threaten that Metagross as well. Tapu Lele now using Protect, not going to want to take a possible Tectonic Rage or a possible attack from that Tapu Koko, but Tapu Koko goes for a Volt Switch in that slot instead, so Kaede playing a bit more on the defensive side here, but it is paying off pretty well.
He's playing on the defensive side, but at least for this turn, James, I think, is in a decent spot. Garchomp does get access to ground-type moves, but if that Metagross is holding weakness policy, I'm sure that James has, prepared for a situation like this where he may have to take an Earthquake just to try and retaliate back. I think the real threat is still in the back of Kaede's party. It is that Arcanine. So rather than focus on this turn, I think James needs to think a couple of turns ahead and be like, yes, I can do this now, but how will I handle the Arcanine when it makes its reappearance?
Tapu Lele now going to switch out. Kartana going to switch right in as Metagross protecting itself here. Not going to want to take a possible ground-type attack, maybe a Tectonic Rage, but instead Garchomp outspeeds that Tapu Koko. Is going to go for an Earthquake, and that is going to be enough to pick up the KO on that Tapu Koko. He is going to hurt his own Kartana, but of course Kartana, even though it has paper-thin defenses, it's a bit bulkier on that physical side.
It is a bit bulkier, and its typing, I think, helps as well. That Garchomp, though, moving faster than the Tapu Koko, that might, again, be an indication of one of the items that these trainers has decided to bring into this game. If Garchomp switches out this turn, or if it goes for a second Earthquake, given how fast it was, that might be enough information for James to assume that it's holding a Choice Scarf. But on the other hand, you just got to really play it safe. Arcanine being switched in at this point, I think, is definitely an indication of that safe play. You want to intimidate the Garchomp, you want to threaten the Kartana. There is still the Arcanine in the back of Kaede's party, but he would have to switch it in at this point in order for it to really threaten the Metagross. So he's bought himself time. I don't know if this is enough time for him to sort of maneuver his way around, given the fact that he is down to his last 3 Pokemon, whereas Kaede still has all 4 of his. But you never know. This is why these trainers are on the world stage. They are able to, make the plays in these situations where they really have to count.
Garchomp now switching out. Arcanine going to come right back in. Going to go for the Intimidate on Arcanine on James's side. Again, that clear body paying huge dividends for not allowing Metagross's attack stat to get dropped. Of course, that switch was smart. Garchomp, it is Intimidate. If it is locked into Choice Scarf, you want to be able to pick up the KO immediately onto that Metagross before it can activate its weakness policy and start doing a lot of damage. Kartana now activating its Fightinium Z, gonna go for an all-out pummeling again here. Gonna go ahead and bypass that Protect on Arcanine and do a little bit of damage there, or hit this Metagross for chip damage thanks to that neutral hit. It is gonna hit that Metagross for some good damage.
Yeah, crashing into that Metagross at high speed, smashing it into a mountain. It does a little bit of damage, but it won't set off the weakness policy if it's holding it, and might put Metagross in range where it could be knocked out by an Earthquake or some other move that Kaede has waiting for the Metagross.
No attack boost right there from that Metagross's Meteor Mash. And again, Metagross has such a high physical defense and that Intimidate from that Arcanine paying huge against that Kartana, so that did barely any damage at all.
I know, it's so exciting, to see Metagross in a situation like this where it's doing so well. You wouldn't expect it to take these kind of hits, but here we are, round 4 Swiss at the World Championships, and Metagross is just hanging in there, doing its best.
Kartana switching out here, gonna switch into Garchomp as Metagross protects. Metagross not wanting to take a Flare Blitz from the opposing Arcanine well, there you go. It's right there as Arcanine on James' side goes for a Bulldoze here. Gonna start slowing down Kaede's team. That's gonna drop the speed on the Arcanine and of course that Garchomp too, which is huge because Garchomp it's carrying that Choice Scarf. Now it's at neutral speed, but it is gonna activate Arcanine's Berry here and heal back 50% of its health from that Mago Berry. So it's such a clutch berry coming in. It's always disheartening to see that when you get a Pokemon whittled away and then it just heals back up.
Good information for Kaede, though, knowing the Arcanine is carrying Bulldoze. Garchomp will still, I think, be the fastest thing on the field right now, so James forced to play defensively, forced to switch around a bit, but gives him an option for speed control moving forwards.
As Garchomp switches in on James' side, Arcanine on Kaede's side, ready to help the Garchomp on Kaede's side. Metagross can protect, and here it is, an Earthquake into everything on the field, gonna hit his own Arcanine as well. That is enough to KO the Arcanine on Kaede's side, but it does pick up the KO on that Metagross without activating that weakness policy and brings Garchomp dangerously low here. Burn damage will slowly whittle away at it as well, so wow, such a really gutsy play from Kaede. You rarely ever want to attack your own Pokemon, but in this situation, it worked out.
It worked out because the Arcanine was really what Kaede needed at that point for the Metagross. And if you're able to handle the Metagross in some other way, let's say a Helping Hand followed up by an Earthquake, even though it's not the greatest that your Arcanine gets knocked out and you give your opponent the opportunity to intimidate, a Pokemon that is presumably locked into a physically attacking move, it's a trade that you can afford to make. Whether or not that trade's going to, be a little bit of a hindrance moving forwards is to be seen, but he's brought it down to essentially a 1-on-3 that Garchomp will be knocked out by burn damage no matter what at the end of this turn. So as long as he's able to keep that Garchomp and that Tapu Lele safe for one turn so he can then, double up on the Arcanine in that last turn, I think he has this game locked down.
Yep, and Garchomp on Kaede's side gonna switch out, you don't want to throw away a game that you feel like you already have set. You want to play as safe as you can. Tapu Lele now protecting itself right here. Going to save that Garchomp in the back for later. Going to allow the Garchomp to get KO'd due to its own burn damage here as Garchomp on James' side. It is burn. It is going to go for a Tectonic Rage here. It will be able to bypass that Protect on Tapu Lele's side. And of course, maybe hit Kartana for just a fair amount of damage. It is burn again. That's going to have that physical damage and it hits the Tapu Lele. Of course, if a Pokemon protects and it gets hit with a Z move, that's only going to do a quarter of what it would have done normally. And wow, not any damage at all thanks to that burn. Arcanine going to go for a Flare Blitz here, going to connect on to the Kartana and be able to pick up the KO, but Kaede is just going to be able to easily switch back in the Garchomp on the other side.
Yeah, a really great switch by him there, allowing the Garchomp to come back out onto the field when it wasn't intimidated. He did use the Protect on the Tapu Lele this turn, so it's possible we might see him use that Earthquake attack again to target down both his own Pokemon and the Arcanine. But we don't know a lot about this Garchomp. It could have some other move that might be a better option here, maybe a Rock Slide, so that Tapu Lele can use its Psychic Terrain boosted Psychic attack or whatever other attack Kaede has.
Garchomp using Earthquake here. It is going to connect on Arcanine. It is going to have to be that Tapu Lele. Tapu Lele hangs on. Arcanine hangs on too, but Tapu Lele should be moving first, and even then, the Arcanine on James' side might not have what it takes to take on a Garchomp anyways. Tapu Lele does have to be that Arcanine. That was something that you could have noticed before with the Psychic Terrain activating before the Intimidate.
Yes.
So that is enough to pick up the KO, and Kaede Waga of Japan defeats James Baek in 2 games. Exciting games from both players. You know, it all came down to the wire, came down to the last few Pokemon on each set, and oh boy.
Yeah, I gotta admire Kaede's confidence there in that last turn. You know, we've seen a lot of players, I think, throughout the year.